My name is Caitlin Sorensen. I'm in Group 3, and the article I'm doing is Getting Clipped, an evaluation of crisis management and the NBA's response to the actions of Donald Sterling. So basically what the article is about is Donald Sterling coming up with racist statements. This was over a prolonged period of time. It wasn't just one thing. He had done a few things leading up to this moment, but then one phone call ultimately led to the demise of his brand, pretty much. So how it all started was Donald Sterling purchased the Clippers for $13 million. They were currently in San Diego at the time, and then he decided to move them to He decided to move them to LA, and he was actually fined a great amount for making that decision because he didn't get it cleared by the NBA. He had promised so many different things for the team, such as success and fair trades and keeping being open with who he brought onto the team, and it was all empty promises. He even hired a model, like just a fashion model, to be one of the general managers of the team. So he never really made any smart decisions that led to the success of the team. The reason for this whole article is it's surrounded by racism. What really led to him being banned from the NBA was a phone call he had with his girlfriend, but some of the more minor things that weren't really brought to light that he had done previously included he would pay the Clippers coach only $350,000 when the head coach was signed up for a 4-year contract of $22 million. There was such a huge deficit with that. He was racist to tenants. He was actually a real estate tycoon, and he would not allow any black people to be tenants in his building because he said that they smelled and they attracted vermins. He wouldn't allow Mexican people in his building either. And then he said that he vocally said that he would allow Korean Americans into his buildings because they would be willing to live in any condition for any price, that they would be willing to pay the rent each month no matter what the living condition was. So ultimately, the social media is what did him in, I guess you could say. He was on the phone with his girlfriend, and she was interrogating him about some comments he had made, because apparently that they had conversations before where he didn't approve of who she was hanging out with, and she had posted on Instagram a photo with Magic Johnson, and he said, "I'm fine with you interacting with them, but I don't want you posting pictures with them and associating them with me," speaking openly about the black community and people who are black, because he had been in so many situations where he was discriminating against minorities. So because this came to light, he was punished. He had a $2.5 million fine, and he was permanently banned from any Clipper organization or the NBA in general. He wasn't allowed to be a general manager anymore. He wasn't allowed to own a team, anything. So he decided to sell that to Steve Ballmer, and he sold it for $2 billion. At first, he was really reluctant to do so because he said that his comments were against his civil rights to have freedom of speech and say what he wants. And so he tried suing the NBA for $1 billion, but then eventually recanted that and ultimately was admitting fault and was going through with selling it to Steve Ballmer. The ultimate reaction from the public was pretty bad. People were associating his racist acts with the Clippers organization and the NBA in general, and so how the NBA reacted to it was they sent out a statement and completely cut off Sterling because they didn't want his image associating with racism. They really pushed for diversity within their organization, and so they made the decision to completely cut him off. And a lot of they were praised for that, especially by like Kobe Bryant made a statement, and Magic Johnson, who was associated with the problem indirectly, he made a statement in support to Commissioner Silver of the NBA. A lot of people were also putting blame on the girlfriend, saying that she was out of line, pressuring him into those conversations and causing him to say those racist things. But she ended up meeting with Barbara Walters and doing an interview saying that they had had many conversations regarding the issue, but now that this one came to light, that's really what's doing him in. Like, he had been saying all these racist statements before, and now it was time for them to be made apparent so someone can do something about it. So I guess a big takeaway from this entire article is not only is really focusing on the brand. I think the NBA responded really well in completely showing their support to diversity and how against racism they are, because that is such a big issue. And this happened pretty recently. It was in 2014. And he had been with the team since the 80s. So there was definitely a time change and in society especially, and he wasn't willing to adjust, but the NBA completely cut him off to show what their stand on the issue was. But another huge takeaway is how people deal with crisis regarding issues such as this. How you deal with crisis can either make or break the brand or organization. Sometimes a lot of the problems come with how you deal with crisis, and it can make it 10 times worse because you need to be able to tell the truth. You need to be prepared on what you're going to say, and you need to act smartly and strategically on how you're going to respond to the issue, because you don't want to step on anyone's toes and you don't want to make the matter even worse. So those were the biggest takeaways for myself, and thank you.